Let's have a little look at how to use Onerat's Easy Placement 1.4. The first thing you want to do is come and set the prefab. There's a lot of example assets included in this new version, so yeah, just grab one of them, chuck it in here, and then come down to the additional tab. In the additional tab, you have this placement button. Currently it's set to C, you can set this to whatever you want. Basically, you need to be holding down the placement button, and then right click to place a prefab. And yeah, ctrl+z will remove them. And yeah, so you can set this to whatever you want, because you might already be using whatever button. And if you don't want this button to be doing anything, just disable the tool. Now the tool won't take over any buttons and won't use any resources. Okay, so now let's have a look at some of the settings. For now, we'll skip over the placement mode, and we'll come straight down to the default parent. So by default, it's set to none, and if we activate this, we get this little option here. We can drag an object into here, and now whenever we place an object, you'll see that it is parented into this object. It's just a nice little way of keeping your scene nice and clean. If we click on the water, we'll be placing it on top of the water. That's because our water has the water layer, and if you have a look at our terrain, we have the default layer. So if we come back over here and we just set this to default, now our trees will be placed under the surface of the water. So that's a nice little feature. Let's just get rid of those trees. Cool. We'll just leave that at default for now. And yeah, align with normals. It's pretty simple. We'll just make the object align with the normals. Obviously, sometimes that will look a little bit bad. So if you come down to the rotation, when you have align with normals on, you get this extra option here. Basically, if this is 0, you're going to align completely with the normal. And if this is 1, then you're going to just face completely upwards. And if you get a blend of these, then you can follow the normal but still have the object point upwards, which for trees just gives you a bit more of a natural look. Just remove all of these. Cool. Yeah, we'll just turn align with normal off for now, but we will add a little bit of rotation like this. So obviously that's too much. We've got 50 and 60, that's way too much. So let's go down to something like 12 on this, because we just want a little bit of rock, a bit of tilt. Yeah, that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit too much still. Let's go down to 8. And yeah, we want 360 for the other, because that will just allow us to have any rotation on the Y. So yeah, that's how the rotation works. If we come over to this mode, we've got absolute. If it's on absolute, that means every tree is going to have that rotation of 8 and 30. I mean 8, 360 and 8. If we have it on random range, then it'll be between 0 and that. Pretty cool. So if we come down to the scale, pretty similar here. We have 3 axis though, and so on 3 axis we can just control the scale on all the 3 axes. If we go to lock axes, then we just have the 1 to control it all. And here we have the absolute and random range again, so just go like this. You'll see, yeah, we're starting to get different sized trees. Cool. Yeah, so before we get into the placement mode, we'll just have a look at this max surface angle. At the moment it's set to 180, which means it can be on any surface. If we bring this down, it will just, we can place it here because it's pretty flat. We can't place it here because it's too much of an angle. So yeah, currently the placement mode is set to single, but we can change this to brush, and now you'll see we have all these extra options down here. So the brush size, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the size of your brush. Oops. Brush thickness, that's the thickness of the brush, so how many objects it's going to try and spawn. And then down here we've got distance between objects, which I can show you now. So if we just paste these here, you'll see they're all pretty close together. We increase this number, now they're all more spread out. Max surface angle, that works the same. And yeah, the brush tool is probably my favorite feature. Alright, so let's have a look at what is now my favorite part of the brush feature, which is if we come down here, we have the object mode. Currently it's set to singular, but if we set it over to multiple, you'll see all these sections pop up. If I just demonstrate quickly what this looks like, you'll see now we're getting an entire forest generated with just, a single brush stroke. pretty cool. So let's have a look what's actually going on here. So if we come down and we just add one of these sections, when you first open this you're not going to have any of these, but I've already got some set up, so we'll just have a look at an empty one for now. So yeah, basically when you're in multiple mode you can create your brush out of multiple different prefabs, all with their own spacing and thickness and all of that stuff, and that just allows you to do what I did there, which is just deactivate this. Yeah, create a scene in a single pass. Pretty cool. You can also do it like in a more fancy way where you can come through and do that and then like deactivate a few layers, and now you'll just be placing these objects, but now that's a little bit too thick, so we'll come down to the brush thickness and then we can add them in a little bit more thin. So you'll see we can create a level pretty quick like this. And if we just come and settle this back, let's have a look at what's going on. So yeah, the first thing you'll notice is this active. You'll see what it did just then when I just used it, which is it just makes the layer active or inactive, so you can make some quick adjustments to your brush to have some variance. Like here we have trees, here we don't. Pretty simple. Below that we have distance between objects. That's the same as when we're in single mode, we have it up here. And then you'll see some new features. So one thing you'll notice with the tool is everything has pretty good tooltips. So if we come down here, we'll see it makes all objects conform to this object spacing. So basically what that means is we've got this min distance here. It means any other object that's in this brush will take that min distance and its min distance when it's near one of those objects. So it will never be within that object's min distance. So with the trees, they have a min distance of like 4 or 5, and that's why you can see they're all pretty far apart from each other. If they had that set to global, then you wouldn't have these bushes in between, because you can't have anything in between because they're too close already. And yeah, hopefully that makes sense. You can play around with it and it should make sense. Under that we have others ignore distance, which makes objects ignore other objects when spacing, which basically means it will use its own distance spacing and space itself out with itself, but when it comes to any other object in the brush, it's going to ignore it as far as spacing, and it doesn't care if it overlaps. This can be good for things like grass, where you want to have a more dense spawning. Okay, so under that we have the max surface angle, that's the same as before, and the brush thickness. So brush thickness is inside of each layer, but it's also on the main brush. So the main brush would do the brush thickness for the entire brush, where down here this does the brush thickness for this element. So if we have a look here, we've got the dead trees here, and it has 269. If we come up here, we have the living trees, and it has 900. And that's why we've only got like 2 or 3 of the dead trees, and we have a lot more of the living trees. So yeah, this is basically just the higher the number, the more you'll get of that in the brush. Lower the number, the less of it you'll get in the brush. Let's close them. Yeah, so this is another thing here. We can do align to normals on the entire brush, or we can do it per object layer. None of these are using it, but yeah, it's the same as before. You just go align to normals, and then you'll get all those features. It also gets that rotation thing, because that's another thing, is all of these brush layers also get their own rotation and scale, and that's why you'll notice that the rotation and scale has disappeared from here. Now we just have general and additional, because yeah, it's all been moved into the brush layers, and that all works exactly the same as it did beforehand. And yeah, to add a prefab, we just come down here and add a prefab. We can have as many prefabs as we want in the layer, and to remove them, we just come through and remove them. And if we don't want to have this layer, we can either set it inactive if it has like some cool settings that we know we're going to want to use again in this session, or we can just come down and remove the element. So yeah, that's basically all the new features in easy placement. And as you see, it allows you to create a level pretty quickly. These assets don't really make it shine the best, but you get the idea. And obviously this can be used for a lot more than creating forests and natural scenes, but the brush features really do shine in those kind of environments. But the general placement can be used anywhere, and obviously the brush can as well. It's just finding the best use cases for your game. So yeah, hopefully you found this cool, and if you have any more features that you would like to see added, jump in our Discord, because yeah, always looking for feedback and always looking for new things to add. If I sound a little bit sick, it's because I am, and it is quite late here. It's like 4 AM, so I'm going to be going to bed now, but yeah, thanks for watching.